We Who Plow, written by Shadeskira. In the cold, endless abyss of interstellar space, where the ghosts of ancient wars roam, and the horrors from forgotten ages lay dormant, the universe remained a fractured puzzle of isolated empires. The Proxima Centauri navigation station had long since been a sentinel of caution, guiding the cautious races of the galaxy through the treacherous void. No one dared stray from the narrow, carefully plotted FTL corridors, for beyond lay the graveyards of battles between long-dead elder races, fields of cold metal, monstrosities, and bioengineered nightmares. Until the day humanity arrived. The generational ship Indomitable, equal parts battlecruiser and ark, emerged from the abyss like a scar carved into the fabric of space. It bore the wounds of its journey openly, scorched hull plating, cratered armor, and a faint electromagnetic haze that hinted at the horrors it had encountered. But the Indomitable had survived, and its arrival was heralded by the kind of reckless audacity only a species forged by the indifference of a cruel homeworld could exhibit. Inside the navigation station, diplomats and officials from countless species scrambled to make sense of the impossible. The humans had done what no one dared even contemplate. They had ignored the prescribed FTL paths, forging a direct line from Sol to Proxima Centauri. They hadn't just survived. They cleared a wide, stable hyperspace corridor in their wake, one so vast that entire fleets could travel through them unimpeded. When questioned, the human captain, a grizzled woman with eyes like tempered steel, simply leaned back in a chair, shrugged and said, "We stared at them, and they stared back, but they blinked first. Not my fault, our railguns fired just then." The room fell silent, the enormity of her statement sinking in. They blinked first. Humanity's brazen defiance of danger was met with a mixture of awe and terror. The interstellar community quickly convened to make an unprecedented request. If humanity could have carved paths through the void, then perhaps they could do it again. On a grander scale. Trade lanes, once fragmented and perilous, could be unified. Ancient neighbors, divided by the abyss, could reconnect. The humans, ever eager to prove their mettle and seize opportunity, embraced the challenge with gusto. Thus was born the Star Plow Initiative. Star Plows were unlike anything their galaxy had ever seen. Gargantuan ships bristling with weaponry, shielded with layers of adaptive armor, and powered by reactors that seemed to hum with boundless defiance. Their mission was simple: to plow through the void, blasting apart the remnants of ancient wars and clearing paths wide enough for entire civilizations to traverse. Their names reflected humanity's dark humor, juggernaut of spite, inevitable attrition, and last laugh amongst others. Each star plow was a self-sustaining hive of grim determination, where generations of crew lived and worked in an environment that blended military precision with a kind of chaotic pragmatism. As the star plows ventured into the abyss, they brought back stories of what lay beyond. They spoke of derelict war machines the size of moons, bristling with weapons that still fired autonomously, of bioengineered predators that could liquefy hull plating with acidic spores, of planets whose surfaces writhed with the remnants of ancient plagues, and of void-born horrors that defied categorization. But for humanity, these were not tales of terror. They were challenges to overcome. Every encounter was a puzzle to solve, a threat to neutralize, and an opportunity to innovate. The wreckage they collected was recycled into ammunition, armor, and technology. The resources they salvaged fueled their relentless march forward. The galaxy watched in astonishment as humanity transformed the abyss from a graveyard into a network of thriving trade lanes. Journeys that once took years of cautious FTL jumps now took mere months. Isolated civilizations found themselves reconnected, their economies revitalized by newfound accessibility of the stars. As humanity's influence spread, so too did their reputation. The galaxy came to understand that Earth was no cradle of comfort. It was a world of unrelenting storms, predatory ecosystems, and tectonic fury. A place where survival required adaptability, resilience, and a touch of madness. Humanity carried that legacy into the stars, and in doing so, reshaped the interstellar community. The star plows became symbols of hope and dread. Hope for those who benefited from the newly forged trade lanes, and dread for those who considered opposing the species capable of such feats. They'd ask why they dared to do what no one else would. A young star plow engineer summed it up with a wry grin. Back home, the planet itself tried to kill us every day. Compared to that, the void's got nothing. And so, humanity plowed onwards, clearing the path through the abyss, not just for themselves, but for all who dared to follow. The stars, once divided by fear and darkness, were united by the audacity of a species too stubborn to blink. End of story. Story number 2. Fire Within, written by PaggyUK. For millennia, Earth was a footnote, an anomaly, ignored by the galactic Concord's gilded spires. A planet catalogued and dismissed, its dossier stamped with a single phrase, Deathworld. Gravity too fierce, weather systems that devoured cities, predators that stalked in packs or alone, with claws, venom, cunning. Continents split by tectonic rage, an atmosphere that scalded flesh in summer and froze bone in winter. Even its sapient species, Homo sapiens, evolved not through harmony, but through horror. They were not born into peace. They survived it. Extinction was not a hypothetical for humanity. It was an ancestral memory. Plagues, wars, famines, floods, repeated endings that taught them how to crawl from rubble with bloody knuckles and to build a new, stronger, better. They learned not to fear death. They learned to bargain with it. So, when Sol's first diplomat stepped into the polished marble halls of the Concord, short and scarred, their eyes always calculating, their bodies short and stocky compared to the other species from years living under gravity that would crush most others, it was not awe that greeted them. It was disgust. They to glorify death sneered the Velari, whose crystalline cities had never seen a war. They burn too hot, too fast, and too unpredictable, whispered Scar, whose moods were chemically neutered before their first breath. They aren't stable, warned an Aranthi. Leave them to rot on their own violent cradle. So humanity was exiled from the galactic heart with no trade, no treaties, and no allies. Only the Draylen offering kind words and hopes that once humanity had proven itself, it might be accepted back into the fold. The human ambassador, overcome with emotion at the small kindness, shed a tear at these words, and promised eternal friendship between humanity and the Draylen. The Concord's peace, so delicately preserved, could not afford the infection of a species so willing to bleed for what it loved. Humanity watched the doors close. And they did not scream, they did not beg, they built, they survived. They carved steel fleets from moons and trained soldiers, they terraformed rock with fire and industry. They remembered every insult, every lockgate, every cold shoulder. Then came the Zur. The swarm descended on the Draylen with a fury the galaxy had never seen. Millions of obsidian wings and mandibles like shears, stripping moons down to bone and ash. The Draylen were artists, singers, six-limbed architects of light. They had never lifted a weapon. They sang their pleas into the void. The Concord responded with committees. By the time their first evacuation vessel departed, their Eris had already died screaming. But the galaxy was not silent for long. A new light rose over the last remaining moons, soul ships, black as morning cloth, crawling from the stars like revenants. They didn't come with negotiations. They came with vengeance. The Terrans did not fight like the Concord. They did not hold back. They did not discriminate. They burned the sky and salted the ground. Their nests were collapsed with kinetic rods from orbit. Napalm rained on hives. Atmospheric processes choked insect lungs. Their ground troops, men and women born in gravity 3 times that of Theralis, fought without sleep, without pause. They used weapons outlawed by every Concord charter. Neverfire, born nickel fires, ultrasonic cannons that shattered minds. The war was over in 9 days. The Draylands, stunned and broken, expected their saviors to extract payment from the last winged corpse, and to leave the Drayland alone to survive or perish on their own. It was the way of the stars. But humanity stayed. They demanded no payment. They sifted ash for survivors. They rebuilt the temples, not from steel but from Drayland crystal, painstakingly grown under human engineers' hands. They wept beside them, buried their dead in shared graves. And when Drayland children sobbed in the night, it was Terran arms that held them, whispering lullabies in languages born of fire and thunder. The Concord came at last, bearing apologies, reparations, a coward's offering. They found Drayland elders seated beside scarred Terran captains, singing songs that now echoed with both sorrow and defiance. One elder, his fur still singed from fire, stepped forward. He looked at the delegation with eyes that had seen too much. When the stars went silent, the monsters from Earth came. They fought and died for us, and they were the only ones who came. The words struck like a hammer through the galactic consciousness. The story spread like a contagion, not just of the war, but what came after. Of the monsters who rebuilt what they did not destroy. Of the devils who taught the weak to fight. The Villari sent scholars to learn strategy. The Tuscar begged for Terran diplomacy. Even the Urenthi, once too proud to kneel, requested Terran advisors to harden their fleets. Humanity returned, not as supplicants, not as diplomats, but as wolves invited back to the fold. And they said only this: "We are not made for peace, but we know how to protect it." Now, the galaxy understands. It was never humanity's violence they should have feared. It was their loyalty, their terrifying, unyielding, all-consuming loyalty. Because when humanity loves you, thinks of you as a friend, they will walk through fire for you and drag hell behind them. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.